So one important potential alternative to the existing power networks are the clans. And again, go back to the nature of horizontal ties. These are the groups, extended family networks that have been present in Central Asia for a very long time and continued to survive the Soviet period. So I want to talk about the Uzbek case as I discuss clans, just to give you some sort of idea of how these exist. So these are very localized identities. Historically in the region, identities were local. In Uzbekistan, you had regional elites like the Fergane elites, the Samarkand elites, the Tashkent elites, who were the most powerful, these three groups. And all these consisted of these clans, people who are connected by blood relations and common birth. You also had intra-clan relations that were governed by paternalism, hierarchy, and coercion. Remember, these are mostly very traditional rural societies. So these are the kinds of relations that you need when it's a bad harvest. Again, going back to the nature of political versus economic, individual versus collective rights. If you have a bad harvest, well, you don't need the rights of the individual. You need the rights of the collective. You need people to focus on helping people out. So people come together and they survive on whatever they can get. This is a very important function of the clan networks. Leaders of the strongest clans, the clan heads, in the Soviet Union sought power in the republic-level bodies in order to affect the distribution of goods in ways that were positive for their own people. So this is a way that the clan networks actually maintained their strength, or arguably even gained in strength, under the authoritarian period of the Soviet Union. Under Stalin, repression led to social upheaval and really changed the power of the clans, which created new opportunities for new leaders of these clans to come in. So in the case of Uzbekistan, for example, Sharif Rashidov, who was from the Samarkand Bukharan elites, arose thanks to leadership charisma, authority over his people, and the perception that he's a good local, living in accord to rural tradition. He was a persuader, and he went from being chair of the Writers' Union to chair of the Supreme Soviet Presidium within Uzbekistan. He served in a delegation with Khrushchev. This was a personal connection that then pushed him into power. So over the Soviet period, there was this sort of dual allegiance. Local officials served the central state, in other words, Moscow, or Moscow through their local capitals, like Tashkent in this case. But also they served their ethnic networks. They were technically subservient to Moscow, but while leaders at the center were looking the other way, they provided for their locals. There was a trickle-down effect where the top people in the Republic capital looked to Moscow, but then they looked to the leaders around the Republic. The leaders around the Republic looked to Tashkent, but then they looked to their oblast, the next division down, the let's say the county level, for example. And then the top level people in the counties or these oblasts would look to the Republic level tops, Tashkent, but then they would look down to their locals, so in the districts. So this constant looking up and looking down and helping people, ensuring that the top was okay and that you could continue to help your people further down. When they were caught, they were often accused of localism, nationalism, and of course corruption. Leaderships tumbled like dominoes from the highest point of question on down. So if someone at the Republic level was caught, then the people in the Oblast level and the district, the Rayon level, were also caught and were purged. This was especially visible under two regimes, the Stalin regime and the Gorbachev, I shouldn't call them, they were the communist regimes, under two leaders, Stalin and Gorbachev. During Brezhnev, the system had grown so strong because Moscow, again, traded away control, direct control, in return for loyalty. And this gave way for these networks. So you had the rise of really what we call parallel authority structures, which are defined in one of your readings as, quote, alternative processes by which values are allocated, styles by which decisions are made, and objects to which deference and obedience are rendered. That sounds horrible. It looks good when you read it. Anyway, there were these parallel authority structures that existed where people would maintained authority on two different levels, to the party and to the Soviet Union, and then also to their clans. And this wasn't unusual to Central Asia. You saw this across colonial and post-colonial states, for example, in Africa. So this was an issue there as well. Individual leaders want to strengthen their base below while appeasing authorities from above to ensure that they remain in their positions. Social context is critical. It affects individual leadership calculations. So it's all about personal context. These can be based on occupation, locality, ethnicity, and there's pressure to conform to the expectations of these reference groups, especially when they're generally small and homogenous. So we're not going to rock the boat. We're going to do what our clan expects us to do. And this leads to fealty, personal allegiances, loyalty, allegiance to the system. The big challenge of local elites at all levels was to look internally powerful, powerful enough to ensure the job that was assigned to them from the top, that job would get done, but also externally weak, so they're not a challenge to the system. And this is how the clans function. Now, sorry, I should have gone here before. So these are the dual. This is the dual allegiance that I'm talking about to Moscow, but often to your home-based constituencies, which are the clans. These parallel authority structures, and here's that beautiful definition I gave to you, and the fealty versus loyalty dilemma. So be strong enough to the outside that they see that you can provide for your people, maintain their support. Right, and that conveys on upwards, but also don't appear too strong because you're still loyal to them and you're not going to rock the boat. So looking at empowerment of the clan, once you're in charge, once they were in charge, clan leaders had to secure the stage for their own power. So once he was officially in charge, Rashidov went about steps that would bring his clan to power, not just him. So he orchestrated purges of top-level leaders representing different clans in various parts of the administration throughout the Republic. This gave way to even more changes at lower levels. This was how clan heads looked out for their own. They gave them cadre positions. And again, this isn't unusual. Across post-colonial states, you find the state being used as a place to deliver favors. So if I want to deliver a favor, I give I give my brother-in-law a position in the state apparatus where he is going to get a check and feed his family. So this is not unusual. So who was in the clan? Well, the clan. And we can split this into a couple groups: core and extended clan members. The core clan, it refers to blood relatives, but the extended clan refers to marriage connections. This is important. It's like royalty in the 17th century in Europe. This is used to create ties, to consolidate ties. So it's often very political who you're going to marry. And marriage in Central Asia, for the most part, is determined by the patriarchy, by your family. Your father in particular decides who you're going to marry. And there's actually a lot more choice than it seems. Oh, this is a cultural aspect I haven't even touched on. I'll use this as a chance to give an aside. I lived with a host family in Central Asia, and the woman who I lived with, the girl, her name was Iroda. She was, I think, 17 or 18 at the time, but she was getting ready to get married. And so her family would go off and look for suitors. And it's not that sort of Western conception that you have to marry whoever they find for you. And in fact, she rejected several of the suitors. And they were okay with that because they were looking for someone that was acceptable to both them and her. So it's almost like playing this sort of blind date game. But the person she really wanted to marry was actually a second cousin of hers, and that was also quite common there. And this goes back to the nature of blood relatives and keeping the clan intact. So moving on from that odd segue, Rashidov's son married the daughter of a Karakalpak leader. And this ensured control over this identity, which accounted for a large amount of Uzbek territory at the time. I think about 1/3 of Uzbekistan's territory. Other relationships were used to consolidate internal ties within the Samarkand-Bukhara regional elites. And this created a new, they even actually created a new administrative unit where Jazak, the hometown of Rashidov, was made into the local capital of this administrative unit. So this is an effort to appeal to his own regional elites. On the other hand, Rashidov's wife was diplomat number one, and she maintained close relations with the wives of Moscow leaders to ensure that Rashidov was seen as loyal and good for Moscow as well. Again, goes back to this fealty versus loyalty notion. The closest ties, the blood ties, would get the most prestigious positions, but everyone got a piece of the pie. Direct relatives, then Rashidov's regional elites, and then further out. They also sought to ensure other elites, like the Fergana elites, were accounted for, so that they wouldn't rise up and oppose him. Right? You don't want to estrange them. So interestingly, Tashkent elites, who were seen outside the capital as having lost their roots, were relegated to secondary posts. Maintaining power using the clan sort of system involved a couple things: control and flexibility. Control, because anyone who opposed clan postings at any level was punished. So there were carrots, some were bigger and some were smaller, but there was also this stick. Rashidov also perpetuated the divide and rule tradition that we saw under Russian colonization, under the early Soviet period, and throughout the Soviet period. Rashidov used this to ensure that there would be no major threat to his clan. He used political and personal intrigues. He would get his friends suspicious of each other, tell one that the other was talking trash about the other, tell the other the same thing. So use them both to inform against each other. Classic, really non-democratic strategies. This was something Stalin did all the time, but in sort of a clan context. Despite this, alliances did occasionally threaten. In 1969, for example, the Fergana and Tashkent elites tried to get Moscow to push Rashidov out. Remember also that, probably not unconnected to this, this was the year that you had that soccer game with the Russians, which ended in ethnic-based violence. Brezhnev at this point stood up for Rashidov, and remember, because Rashidov was loyal to him, and so he stood up for Rashidov, and nothing happened. But you also have flexibility, and this stems from this. Fergana elites lost their coveted place in the chain because of these sort of intrigues, and Tashkent elites declined even more in terms of influence. So this is what we mean by flexibility. So I'm going to stop right there, since we're going to move into the mechanisms of democracy.